program Kazakhstan International Vectors, International Relations, Political Views, Economic Solutions and Social Innovations. Further you will find out why it is necessary to erase boundaries between metropolis and countryside, who is willing to employ Kazakhstanis, and whether Kazakhstan is able to reach the European level of development. The man without a country is a nightingale without a forest. Kazakh proverb. Today it is easy to trace the pattern. The less developed a country is considered to be, the greater the social and economic gap between the standard of living in the capital cities and small towns, and the more are the rural areas. The United Nations thought that over time it can develop into a serious problem. In 2015, the United Nations adopted Sustainable Development Goals up to 2030. Among them, provision of openness, security, viability and sustainability of cities and towns. This goal is important both for the development of a particular region and for the development of the country as a whole. Socio-economic development includes the growth of production and incomes and, as a result, increasing the welfare of the population, changes in the institutional, social and administrative structures of society, changes in the social consciousness, changes in traditions and habits, improving the health of population, raising its education, and so on.
No one is left behind.
No one left behind. It simply means inclusiveness. All are included, from the last moment and from the last citizen, but it doesn't mean that it is the last one in the queue, but wherever he or she was. Simply just that it is always the state in collaboration with the United Nations concerned about his or her well-being. Systematic work should be carried out and is actually carried out primarily at the level of state bodies, municipalities. That is, the problem should be solved on the ground. Always, all the citizens of the country should have an access to the same benefits. This means that they should feel the same level of development. It does not matter if they live in a large city, some capital like Astana or Almaty, or if they live in a village far from the big city. So they have to have the feeling that in terms of achieving development, they feel the same good. So they probably might not have an access to some categories of development, such as the access to clean drinking water, or they have a problem with an access to low-cost or free energy. These plans should help to raise the regions in these terms. To date, 20% of Kazakhstanis consume drinking water that does not meet quality standards. Apart from everything else, the reason lies in deterioration of sewer networks in many remote areas. This problem should be resolved by means of the program Ecology of Kazakhstan for the period 2010-2020. The electricity development program has been also developed and is valid until 2020. In 2016, Kazakhstan celebrated the 25th anniversary of independence. In 2017, it is going to turn a quarter century since the country joined the United Nations. The Republic has committed itself to achieving the goals of sustainable development, on which the whole world has been focused. Objectives of Sustainable Development Goals, they certainly reflect the foreground global agenda. But again, this global agenda is logically distributed simply by country and by region. Thus, each country chooses the 17 goals, those which are suitable in terms of the country too, in terms of regional development. Speaking about the example of Kazakhstan, now main plans for the next 15 years are vital, because the goal of sustainable development is the agenda for the post-2015 as designed for 2016 to 2030. How Akims are going to solve problems in the field at their own expenses? To whom and how the state is ready to help with the square meters? The main objective of the regional socio-economic development is to improve the quality of life. Among the tactical goals of the region or a specific city can be called the attraction of new businesses, expansion of an existing business, small business development, improvement of the city center and the service sector, increased employment, raising funds in the life support infrastructure, and so on. According to these objectives, there are several programs in Kazakhstan which are focused on the development of the regions. The main Regional Development Program 2020 is composed of several areas: Single Industry Towns Development Program, Business Development Program, development of the manufacturing industry, and providing each and every citizen of Kazakhstan with housing. We implement a single program, Business Roadmap 2020, and the first direction is the support of monocities and towns. If you look at monocities and towns, there are higher subsidies. Subsidizing is equal to 10%. If the entrepreneur receives a loan in the bank, under the terms the bat should be more than 19%. In this case, Damu Foundation under the state line takes 10% and the entrepreneur pays only 9% physically. And for the city of Almaty, Astana and other regional centers, subsidies are less, only 7%. In addition, managers of Damu Foundation are consulting the novice businessmen. Priority areas of business development today are agriculture and processing industry. Kazakhstan is committed to ensuring the full provision of the country's own food production. However, many businessmen open service industries. Apart from that, there is the area of education. Within our program, many gardens, nurseries, kindergartens, training centers and language courses are being launched. There is a state program called Balapan, where businessmen get the double support from the state in the form of grants from the Damu Foundation, and also they participate in the program Balapan. If you say in the health area, it also has a large share of it. A lot of health centers, dental clinics are being opened. The inbound tourism is also largely supported. Guest houses, sanatoriums and children's camps are being opened and restored. It allows forming the image of the region and creating new working places. Towards the employment in the regions, the state program of industrial innovative development is also oriented. In 2015, within the frameworks of the State Program of Industrial Innovative Development, 5,145 people were employed. In 2016, 165 projects are being implemented in the regions within the program. The number of working places created, 26,644. The largest number of projects is being implemented in Kyzylardar 30, South Kazakhstan 26 and Pavlodar regions 17. The Ministry of National Economy was among those who have taken care to solve problems with the infrastructure and some other problems. Under the new bill to increase the financial independence and responsibility of AKIMs on 2017-2019 years to the base of local budgets at the greatest amount possible were included the cost of a permanent nature, previously funded from trust funds from the national budget. The revenues of the village are defined into 6 types of taxes. This is a tax on vehicles of physical entities, property tax on individuals, the land tax on settlements with physical and legal persons, and individual income tax and not taxed from the source of payment. We have also been granted the right to charge for advertising, placement of outdoor visual advertising in the settlements and in the ROWs of roads passing through the villages, townships, cities of regional destinations. They also have the right to replenish through voluntary fees. We will give them municipal property which they can rent and thereby replenish the budget. It will become easier to solve issues at the local level. The village will get something like financial independence. At the level of village, rural district, the town of the district values, the local budget will appear. In a special way, control over spending will be organized. Control over the use of budgetary funds of that level, which we are talking about, has actually 4 budget levels. These are the budget of a city of a regional destination, rural district, the village. Here we will hold meetings. The first monitoring will be carried out according to the law on a mandatory basis every 6 months. They also have the right to hire competent staff, like the auditing company, to bring to the budget review. The Program of Development of Regions until 2020 is participated by Жилстройсбербанк. The entity has prepared special conditions for the purchase of housing for the citizens of Kazakhstan. Within the framework of 2 programs, the Development of Regions and Joly new housing is already being built. Regarding governmental programs, if we take the program of regional development, if in the past year through the bank throughout the country 404,000 square meters of housing have been put into rent, and this year we plan to deliver 457,000 square meters within the bank line. As you know, well, this year we are the operators of Joly program. The program Joly for the next 2 years within the bank line has planned commissioning of the country about 800,000 square meters of housing, which is about 13,000 apartments. As part of the regional development, the bank offers housing for young families with no down payment, as well as accommodation for all categories of the population with the cost from 90,000 tenge per square meter. Favorable conditions are also offered by Joly program. You can save in bank only 30% of the cost of housing and buy an apartment on credit. The financing we have from a national fund on the basis of revolving, if to explain, money is allocated only once for 2 years provided by wrapping means, that is, the allocated money goes to building operators to build a house, then the bank using its depositors' funds buys out housing, returns money to building operators are starting to build more housing. That is provided by a continuous cycle of construction. Another component of the program Joly is rental housing. This deals with Kazakhstan Mortgage Company. In some cities of Kazakhstan, for example in Taraz, objects with rental housing are located in the central areas. It is also interesting that some of them are built in the immediate vicinity of Nazarbayev intellectual schools. Accommodation is available for rent for up to 20 years. Through buy-to-rent development, if you know, for the first time we have governmental programs to implement the principles of investors' vote. That is, until the construction of the facility, before we finance, we first conduct a vote when investors vote for items they like in the object, like the price, whether they are satisfied with the quality of new housing, location, then they vote on their personal account on the official website of the bank. If we collect enough votes, so when we agree on the project, say yes, we are taking part in this construction. Experts of the bank predict a further rise in demand for housing in all regions of Kazakhstan, as well as the surge in housing construction in the country. This should help to ensure many citizens with their own square meters and also with jobs. Relations between regions in different countries develop differently. In Latin America, most of Asia and some African countries, the national urban system is dominated by the metropolitan agglomeration. For example, in São Paulo, Brazil, more than a third of GDP of the whole country is produced. Overcrowding is rapidly becoming a problem of such cities. As a result of the global economic process, over the last 10 years, 3 new types of sites appeared in the world: production zones, tourism areas, and financial and business centers. A balanced system of cities is a main characteristic of Europe and the United States. Many analysts have identified a tendency to significant growth of small European and American cities, followed by a decline of the value of historic urban centers in the 70s and 80s. However, large cities continued to grow. Let's look, for example, at the level of the Scandinavian countries and some European countries, where almost non-existent, where there are hardly any differences between the cities and towns. There is in principle the only difference is how dense the population is, how many people live in the city, in these villages or small towns. Kazakhstan today, in many respects, does not lag behind Europe and is committed to the same level of development of the regions. However, in a country there are very different conditions. A problem primarily lies in the large distances between settlements. Therefore, the achievement of sustainable development of regions requires considerable financial and human costs. And then the regions, whatever the people who live in the regions, in small cities, towns, villages, all of them will feel the same standard of living as in the big cities. It is logical then leads them to the level of the country, not only economic, but above all the economic and social. I emphasize socio-economic level, raises the country level to level, so that stands in the task put in front of Kazakhstan to join the top 30 most developed countries. What Europe was striving for centuries, Kazakhstan will be able to achieve in a few decades. Experts believe the reason for this success lies in the dynamic development of the country and a considerable human potential.